Hey, this is Glenn, and I just published day 72, the meditation on the fire-breathing dragon. And then I did something that I haven't done before, but I think I'm going to do it more often. I took the script that I used for that meditation, and I put it into Notebook LM, which is an artificial intelligence program that creates a podcast in just a matter of minutes. Because I wanted to hear them talk about the script. I wanted to hear it against certain things like polyvagal theory, samskara, neuroscience, some other ideas that I had. And I really liked what I got. So I'm going to publish it here. This is not a binaural meditation. This is just something to listen to better understand my intentions, at least, behind the day 72 meditation. Except, you know what? I actually am going to make it a binaural meditation. Yeah, this is going to be an experiment. Let's see how it goes. And if you happen to live in Arizona and you're looking for a therapist, I'd be happy to work with you. And if you're outside of Arizona but you're looking for some guidance and some support in achieving some goals, I could also work with you as a life coach. I'll put my contact information in the show notes. And now, here is what I like to call an AI puppet show. Enjoy.
I want you to picture something. Just you put yourself in this scenario. It's a Tuesday.
Always a Tuesday.
As a Tuesday, you're driving. Maybe you're on your way to work, or maybe you're heading home. The radio's on. The sun is shining, and you feel fine.
Perfectly normal.
Perfectly normal. You are a rational, reasonable human being who pays their taxes and, loves their family. And then out of absolutely nowhere, a blue sedan cuts across 3 lanes of traffic and just slams on the brakes right in front of you.
Yes, the universal trigger.
Right, so you slam on your brakes,
Yeah.
your coffee spills a little bit on the console, and in that split second, something completely terrifying happens.
It's not a thought.
Exactly, it's not a thought. You don't sit there and think, my goodness, that driver made an unsafe maneuver. No, it's like a physical possession. A flame erupts from your chest, it shoots up your neck, your vision actually narrows. You are, in that exact moment, suddenly ready to engage in, vehicular combat with a total stranger.
We call that the flash.
The flash.
Yeah.
It's that moment where you are literally no longer driving the car. The rage is driving the car. And usually, and I know I've been here about 10 minutes later, you're sitting there at a red light, your heart is still pounding, and you're thinking, who was that guy? Why did I get so incredibly angry over a minor traffic thing?
It's a question we've literally all asked ourselves. And it usually comes with a lot of guilt, doesn't it?
Oh, a massive amount of guilt.
Yeah.
We think it's a character flaw. We think we just need to, calm down or just be a nicer person. But today, we are going deep into the actual mechanics of that flash. We aren't just going to sit here and complain about bad drivers.
Which we could do for hours.
We absolutely could.
Yeah.
But instead, we're asking some really specific questions. What exactly is that fire? Where does it live in the body? And here's the really provocative part that we're going to unpack today. What if that fire isn't a mistake? What if it's actually a dragon guarding a treasure?
That is such a powerful image. And I think it sets the stage for a really unique deep dive today. Because usually we're tearing apart a best-selling book or, a stack of peer-reviewed academic papers. But today, our primary source material is a little bit different.
It is. We are analyzing a piece of audio, specifically a meditation script that's designed to completely deconstruct human emotion.
We're calling it the Dojo of Sound.
The the Dojo of Sound, yes. It's this guided protocol. And it uses binaural beats, specifically theta waves, to literally walk the listener through their own nervous system. And as it does, it builds this incredible framework using the metaphor of the fire-breathing dragon, and also this concept of the rider and the elephant.
But and I need to jump in here before anyone rolls their eyes, before you think this is just going to be some, woo-woo breathing exercise or crystal healing session. I have to stop you. What makes this script so fascinating to analyze is that it is essentially a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse for science.
Exactly. For some very heavy-hitting science and philosophy. We are going to be pulling in polyvagal theory. We're looking at the neuroscience of prediction engines. We're even bringing in the concept of samsara from yogic traditions, acceptance and commitment therapy, and David Hawkins' map of consciousness.
Right. Let's unpack this, because I'll be perfectly honest. When I first read the outline for this deep dive, I thought, okay, a meditation script. Nice, we're going to talk about relaxing. But as I actually dug into the breakdown and the mechanics of the audio, I realized this isn't about relaxing at all.
Not even a little bit.
Well, maybe a little bit.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
This is about architecture. It's about understanding the deep blueprint of why we feel exactly what we feel.
Precisely. It's about moving from being a passenger in your own emotional vehicle, that guy screaming at the lucid hand, to actually being the driver. Or, to use the source's metaphor, the rider.
Okay, so let's start with the monster in the room. The dragon. The source text opens with this incredibly vivid imagery of a fire-breathing dragon living inside the chest. It says this dragon breathes fire before you're even consciously aware of it. But then, and this is the part that got me, it drops this line that just stopped me cold. It says, dragons usually guard treasure.
That is the key shift. That is the entire pivot of the protocol. Usually in Western storytelling, and frankly in Western psychology, the dragon is the villain.
Right, it's the beast. You have to slay the dragon. St. George and the dragon.
Exactly. You're told you have to conquer your anger, you have to beat your anxiety, you have to destroy these negative emotions. But this source takes a distinctly non-dualistic approach. It suggests that the dragon, your rage, your reactivity, your flash of anger, is actually a protector.
Hold on, though. Because I can hear the skeptics right now. And frankly, I'm pushing back on this myself a little bit. If I'm screaming at my kids because they spilled milk on the rug, or if I'm losing my mind in traffic, that does not feel like protection. That feels like I'm just losing it. How on earth is that guarding a treasure?
That is the crucial question. To understand this, we really have to look at the hardware. We have to look at evolutionary biology. Why does rage even exist? Why did it survive millions of years of human evolution?
Because it works.
Because at some point, it kept your ancestors alive. If a predator attacks or a rival tribe tries to steal your food source, you do not have time to sit around and contemplate the nuances of diplomacy. You need immediate, explosive, mobilizing energy. You need the dragon.
So the dragon is essentially a biological bodyguard.
Yes, a very, very effective bodyguard. But here is the central problem. The bodyguard is working off a very old security manual. The source points out that the dragon's operating on outdated instructions.
Meaning you can't tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and, say, an annoying email from accounting.
Exactly. Biologically speaking, the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, operates on a 12 millisecond delay. It is incredibly fast. The rational cortex, the thinking part of your brain, that takes hundreds of milliseconds to fully come online.
Wow. So it's not even a fair race.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So by the time you consciously realize, oh, that's just a passive-aggressive email from my boss, I shouldn't panic, the dragon has already scorched the earth. It saw a threat to your status or your financial security, and it did its job. It mobilized you, it protected the treasure of your ego or your safety.
But the cost of that protection is that I look like an absolute lunatic in the break room.
Right. The mechanism is incredibly successful for raw physical survival, but it is disastrous for modern social connection. That's the mismatch we're living with.
This really reminds me of that concept we were looking at in the prep notes regarding Indian philosophy, samskara.
Oh, this is essential. Yes. Samskara is often translated from Sanskrit as a mental impression or a psychological groove.
I really like the word groove. It feels physical.
It is physical. It's neuroplasticity. Think of your mind like a muddy hill. If water flows down a certain path every single day for 10 years, what happens?
It carves the canyon.
It carves a deep, entrenched canyon. When it rains again, the water has to flow down that canyon. It has no choice. It doesn't have free will anymore. It has physics. That is samskara. When you get angry in traffic for the 1000th time, you aren't making a conscious, rational decision to be angry. You are simply sliding down a neurological canyon that you have spent 20 years carving.
That is honestly a little depressing. It sounds like we're totally trapped. If the groove is that deep, how do we ever get out?
Well, that's the whole mission of this deep dive. The source says the goal isn't to stop the dragon immediately. You can't just get rid of the rage, because you can't. It's too fast. The water's already in the canyon.
So if I can't stop the rage in the moment,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do?
You have to build a new canal, divert the water. But you can't do it while the storm is raging. You have to do it when it's dry. And this brings us to the second major concept in the script, which is the gym of awareness.
I really like this analogy when I was listening to the audio. The source treats awareness not as some mystical spiritual gift like you're either born the Dalai Lama or you're not, but as a literal physiological function, a muscle.
A noticing muscle.
Right, the noticing muscle. And it visualizes this muscle sitting right in the forehead, right between the eyes.
Which is anatomically very significant. That is exactly where the prefrontal cortex sits. That's the CEO of the brain. That's the part of you that handles executive function, complex logic, and crucially, inhibition. It's the part that says, I really want to punch that guy in the blue sedan, but I enjoy not being in prison, so I won't.
But the script makes a point that I think is critical for anyone who is trying to change a deep habit. It says, you don't walk into a physical gym and immediately try to bench press 300 pounds. You have to start small.
Yeah.
It outlines 3 distinct stages of repetition. And I want to walk through these because this felt like a really practical roadmap for the listener.
It is. This is essentially progressive overload, but for your mind.
Okay, lay it on me. Let's do stage 1.
Stage 1 is post-reaction noticing. Now, this is where most of us live. You get angry, you yell, you send the mean email, the dragon breathes fire, and then 10 minutes, maybe an hour later, you're cooling down and you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I was being really judgmental.
Oh, that's the regret phase. I know it very well.
And it feels like a failure. You sit there and think, I blew it again, I lost my temper. But the source argues, and neuroscience completely backs this up, that this is actually the first successful rep. You did notice. You just noticed late. The circuit fired. You looked at the canyon and said, hey, I fell in. is the absolute beginning of awareness.
Okay, so instead of beating myself up for realizing it an hour late, I should actually credit myself for realizing it at all, because I'm engaging the muscle.
Exactly. You are literally building the muscle by reflecting on it. Then we move to stage 2, which is mid-reaction noticing. This one is much harder. You're in the middle of the argument. Your heart's pounding. You're shouting. But suddenly, a tiny part of your brain wakes up. The observer. And it says, wow, I am shouting right now. I can hear the anger in my own voice. I am currently sliding down the canyon.
That is such an awkward place to be. You're basically watching yourself be a jerk in real time, but you can't quite hit the brakes yet.
It's incredibly uncomfortable, but it represents a massive leap in cognitive control. You are developing what we in psychology call metacognition. You are thinking about your thinking. You are no longer fully identified with the anger. You are the anger, and you are the one watching the anger. You split your awareness.
And then we get to stage 3, the holy grail of the noticing muscle.
Stage 3 is pre-reaction noticing. This is where all the training finally pays off. You feel the surge. You see the trigger, the car swerving, the rude comment. You literally feel the heat rise in your chest. But because you have spent so much time strengthening that arm, noticing muscle, you catch it before it becomes an action. You say, here it is again. Hello, dragon. I see you.
And the source says something here that I found really, really helpful. It says, I'm going to find something else for you to do. That's such a powerful reframe. It's not go away, you bad emotion. It's I'm reassigning your energy.
And this connects so beautifully to the work of the neuroscientist Neil Seth. He talks extensively about the brain functioning as a prediction engine.
Right. I brought this up in our prep. Unpack the prediction engine for us.
So we naturally tend to think that our eyes work like video cameras. Like they just take in the world exactly as it is and display it on the screen in our minds. But Neil Seth argues that the brain is actually trapped in a completely dark skull. It never sees light. It never hears sound. It only receives ambiguous electrical signals from the nervous system. So it constantly has to guess what's happening out there. It constructs what he calls a controlled hallucination.
A controlled hallucination. I love that term.
It's essentially constantly predicting what will happen next based on your past experience, your samskaras. If you grow up in a highly chaotic home, your brain predicts chaos. If you constantly expect disrespect at work, your brain will predict anger before the event even fully processes. It's prepping the body.
So if I'm wired for road rage, my brain is basically sitting there behind the wheel predicting someone is going to cut me off, and when they do, I need to fight.
Yes. The rage is a prediction. It's not a reaction to the car, it's a prediction of threat. Building this noticing muscle is essentially throwing a wrench into that prediction engine. It's pausing the simulation, it creates a gap between the stimulus and the response. It forces the brain to update its prediction from I need to fight for my life to I am safe, this is just a blue car.
But, and this is a massive caveat in the source material, you cannot train this muscle when you're already angry. You cannot learn Kung Fu while you are actively in a street fight.
Exactly. The source emphasizes heavily that the training must happen in a state of deep calm. You have to simulate the stress in a safe environment, which is what the Dojo of Sound is, so that when the real stress hits in the real world, your body already knows the pathway.
Which brings us to the central framework of the entire deep dive today. This is the part that really clicked for me when I was listening. The writer and the elephant. Now, I've heard this metaphor before, usually in pop psychology or business books, but the way this specific script uses it feels much deeper.
It is deeper here because it connects directly to deep evolutionary time. The metaphor was originally popularized by Jonathan Haidt, but here it aligns perfectly with polyvagal theory. The writer represents your conscious awareness, the logical you, the one who has a daily to-do list, who wants to be a good person, who reads self-help books, who is sitting here listening to us talk right now.
That's me. I'm the writer. I have plans and spreadsheets.
We're all trying to be good writers?
Yeah.
But the elephant is your body. It's your autonomic nervous system. It's the vast, silent unconscious. And the source makes a very specific, profound point about the timeline here. The elephant is ancient.
The biological library. That's what they call it.
Think about it from a biological perspective. Your conscious mind, the writer, the part that can do algebra and speak in complex sentences, has only been around for a tiny sliver of evolutionary time, maybe a couple 100,000 years in its current modern form. But the elephant holds the genetic memory of surviving ice ages, meteor impacts, global plagues, and predators. It has a library of successful survival strategies that stretches back billions of years, literally all the way back to single-celled organisms.
That is deeply humbling. When you put it in that perspective, my little spreadsheet doesn't stand a chance.
It really doesn't. Your elephant knows exactly how to survive. It's phenomenally good at it. Rage, checking out, freezing, running. These are all books in the elephant's library that have been absolute bestsellers for millions of years. And here's the crucial insight that explains why self-control is so incredibly difficult. The elephant always moves first.
That's the line. I wrote that down. The elephant always moves first.
It has to. Biology always prioritizes speed over accuracy when survival is on the line. The neurological signal from your eyes to your amygdala, the fear center, is physically shorter and faster than the signal to your cortex, the thinking center. By the time the writer even realizes something is happening, the elephant is already fully charging.
So when we get furious at ourselves for losing our temper or for getting terrified before public speaking, we're basically the rider yelling at the elephant for just being an elephant.
We're trying to use brute force. We're trying to pull back the tiny little reins on a 6-ton beast that is terrified for its life. it just doesn't work. If the elephant feels threatened, it will not listen to logic. You cannot reason your way out of a panic attack. You cannot think your way out of blinding rage.
This is exactly where polyvagal theory comes in, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Stephen Porges, who is the father of polyvagal theory, talks about a concept called neuroception. This is the body's unconscious, constant scanning for safety or danger in the environment. It's happening 24/7. Completely underneath your conscious awareness. If the elephant detects danger, if there's a neuroception of threat, it instantly goes into sympathetic mobilization, fight or flight. The rider's logic goes completely offline. The blood literally leaves the prefrontal cortex and rushes to the limbs. You become smarter at fighting and much dumber at math.
So, if the rider absolutely cannot force the elephant to calm down, what can it do? Are we just completely helpless passengers strapped to a 6-ton beast?
No, we aren't helpless. The rider can guide the elephant, but only, and this is the critical distinction, only when the elephant feels safe. The entire goal shifts from control to safety. The rider's job isn't to beat the elephant into submission, it's to soothe the elephant so that it can actually hear the rider. It's about creating a container of safety so the nervous system can biologically downregulate.
And that is exactly what the sonic scan in the source material is designed to do. It's an auditory tool to soothe the elephant. The source describes this Dojo of Sound, and it uses crystal singing bowls in very specific frequencies. Now, before we get into the emotions themselves, let's talk about the audio tech here. Because I'll be honest again, when I see the word sound healing, my skepticism radar immediately goes up. Why sound? Why not just talk therapy?
It's very easy to dismiss as new age fluff, but there is hard empirical science here regarding brainwave entrainment. The source relies heavily on the use of binaural beats. This is a phenomenon where you play two slightly different acoustic frequencies in each ear. Say you play a 200 hertz tone in the left ear and a 208 hertz tone in the right ear. The human brain, trying to reconcile the difference between the two, actually creates a third tone, a phantom beat inside the brain at exactly 8 hertz.
And 8 hertz corresponds to what?
Theta waves. Your brain operates at various electrical frequencies depending on your state. Beta is where we are right now. Alert, talking, processing information. Alpha is when you're relaxed, maybe reading a book. But theta, which is roughly 4 to 8 hertz, is that deep twilight state between waking and sleeping.
You mean that moment right when you wake up, but your eyes are still closed? You aren't dreaming anymore, but you aren't stressing about your to-do list yet either.
Exactly, you're floaty. You are highly suggestible. That is the theta state.
And usually getting into a deep theta state while awake takes, years of Zen meditation training?
Or at least 45 minutes of very deep focused meditation for a seasoned practitioner. But this audio technology is effectively trying to hack the brain to drop you into that state in a matter of minutes. It's trying to bypass what hypnotists call the critical faculty. That's the writer's rigid, logical filtering system. It bypasses the writer so you can speak directly to the elephant.
So we're essentially slipping past a rational security guard to whisper directly to the operating system.
That's a perfect way to put it. You're giving the nervous system a direct signal of safety.
Okay, so let's walk through this actual scan. The source moves through human emotions, not randomly, but in a very specific hierarchy. It reminded me intensely of David Hawkins' map of consciousness, where human emotions are ranked by their energetic level or vibration. We start at the very bottom. First scan is for shame.
This is the heavy stuff, the absolute bottom. The source associates shame with the root of the body, the fundamental right to exist. In Hawkins' map, shame is the lowest possible vibration, sitting barely above actual death. The source describes the physical feeling of it as worthlessness, a desire to shrink, a core belief that something is fundamentally wrong with me.
It's that feeling of just wanting the floor to open up and swallow you whole.
Exactly, but let's apply our evolutionary lens here. Why would the elephant ever choose shame? How is that possibly a survival strategy? In polyvagal terms, this is what we call the dorsal vagal shutdown. Imagine a gazelle out on the savannah that has been caught by a lion. The jaws are closing, fighting is completely useless, running is impossible. What does the gazelle do? It completely collapses, it goes limp, its heart rate drops massively, the brain floods the body with endorphins to numb the physical pain of being eaten. It is a metabolic conservation strategy. The biological logic is, if I look dead, maybe the predator will lose its and drop me. So when you feel deep depression or profound shame, when you literally cannot get out of bed, your elephant isn't broken. It's terrified. It is calculated that the only way to survive whatever threat you are facing is to hide and conserve every ounce of energy.
The visual image the source gives for this is heartbreaking, but I think it's so helpful. It says, the elephant lies down and hides, while the rider on top kicks and screams for it to move. I think so many of us have been exactly there. We're depressed, we're burned out, and our own inner monologue is just screaming, get up, be productive, you're being so lazy.
And that screaming the rider violently attacking the elephant only proves to the elephant that the environment is not safe. So what does it do? It hunkers down even deeper. The source says the answer here isn't force. It's love. It's radical safety. You have to whisper to the elephant, it's okay. You can stand up now. The lion is gone. I've got you.
Moving slightly up the scan, we hit apathy. The source calls this low battery mode. It's the feeling of, who cares? It's just not worth the effort.
Apathy is a slightly higher energy state than total shame, but it's still very much a conservation state. It's a psychological defense against disappointment. If I don't care about the outcome, I can't be hurt when it fails. It's that classic teenage shrug, whatever. But biologically, it's the elephant simply refusing to spend precious calories on hope because the prediction engine says the reward is definitely not coming.
Then the audio moves us to grief. The sound frequency actually shifts to the heart center. The source says grief is the physical ache of losing something that mattered. But then it gives this definition that I genuinely want to tattoo on my forehead. It says, grief is love adjusting to loss.
That is such a profound reframing of the emotion. We so often treat grief in our culture as a pathology, something to quickly get over or move on from so we can get back to work. But biologically speaking, attachment is a primary survival mechanism. Mammals survive in tribes. We survive in pairs. When we lose a deep connection, a partner, a parent, or honestly even a job that gave us identity, the nervous system goes into massive shock. It's a catastrophic calculation error in the brain's prediction engine. I expected this person to be here today, and they aren't.
So the extreme physical exhaustion of grief, that's actual literal work happening in the body.
It is massive metabolic labor. That adjustment the source talks about, that is the brain literally rewiring its physical map of the world. It is actively deleting the thick neural pathways that say call mom at 5 p.m. and desperately trying to build new ones that say mom is gone. That takes a tremendous amount of physical energy. So when you are grieving and you feel so tired you can barely walk, it's not because you are mentally weak, it's because your elephant is doing heavy, complex construction work in the background.
So the elephant isn't malfunctioning, it's recovering. That is just such a kinder way to look at our own pain. Okay, so after grief, the energy of the meditation shifts dramatically. We leave the shutdown states and we move into mobilization. We scan for fear.
Right. Now we are entering the sympathetic nervous system, the classic fight or flight mode. The source links this specifically to personal power and protection. Scientifically, fear is a forward-looking prediction problem. The source says the brain is having a difficult time predicting a good outcome. And Neil Seth's work on controlled hallucinations is super relevant here again. Your brain is constantly guessing what happens next. When the data coming in suggests a high probability of pain, social rejection, or death, the brain sounds the alarm bells.
And the source talks about the loop, the ruminating loop, where the elephant just spins in circles.
This is worry. This is chronic anxiety. It's the brain running endless simulations. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I fail? It's desperately trying to find a safe path forward. And if it can't find one, it just loops the simulation over and over. But notice the source's advice here, which is brilliant. It says, fear can point you towards your deepest treasures. This concept is very aligned with acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. In ACT, we say that pain and values are two sides of the exact same coin. You only fear losing what you deeply care about.
Give me a concrete example of that. How does that play out?
Say you are terrified, just paralyzed with fear about failing a big presentation at work. What does that fear actually tell you? It tells you that you value competence. You value your career. You value the respect of your peers. If you didn't care about the job at all, you wouldn't feel fear. You would just feel apathy. So the fear is actually a compass. It points directly to what you love.
That's a total game changer. Instead of telling myself I need to stop being afraid, I'm so weak, it's asking, what does this fear tell me that I hold value for? It changes the whole relationship to the fear. Okay, next up in the scan is the big one, the dragon itself, anger. The source associates anger with strength of will. And it says the primary trigger is a recognition of unfairness or injustice.
Anger is high energy. If you look at Hawkins' map, anger is calibrated significantly higher than shame or apathy. It's actually a massive stepping stone. Clinically speaking, it is much better for a patient to be angry than to be hopeless, because anger is mobilizing. The source notes the physical feeling of heat, the fire in the jaw or the chest. That is literal adrenaline and cortisol preparing the physical body to fight.
But the source makes a crucial distinction. It says anger itself isn't bad, it's how the energy is used.
Exactly. Anger is just fuel. It's raw kinetic energy. In therapy, we often talk about the difference between clean anger and dirty anger. Clean anger is pure protection. It's the mother bear protecting the cub. It's the firm boundary that says, no, you cannot treat me this way. Dirty anger is the ego. It's how dare you cut me off, or do you know who I am? The rider's job isn't to put out the fire of anger, it's to direct the hose. Think about major social justice movements. Think about standing up for a bullied child. That requires anger. It requires the dragon. The noticing muscle allows us to pause and ask, do I use this fire to burn down my own house, or do I use it to forge a sword to defend the vulnerable?
That brings us to pride. The source calls pride a shield. It manifests as defensiveness, arrogance, stubbornness.
Pride is very tricky. It feels powerful to the person experiencing it, but it's actually incredibly brittle. The source says it protects areas of deep shame or fear. If I have to constantly tell you how great I am, or if I absolutely refuse to admit when I'm wrong, it's because my elephant feels deeply unsafe. If I lower the shield, I might be attacked. The visual the source uses of a shield with razor-sharp spikes is great. It protects you, yes, but it also ensures nobody can ever hug you. It completely closes the door to human connection.
And wielding a heavy shield all day long is just exhausting. So now, we hit the major pivot point in the audio. We've scanned all the heavy survival-based stuff. Now the binaural sound shifts, lending power and heart. We scan for courage.
In David Hawkins' map of consciousness, courage is the critical tipping point. It is calibrated exactly at level 200. Anything below 200, shame, fear, anger, pride is considered force. It drains your life energy. Anything above 200 is power. It adds life energy. The source defines courage not as slaying the dragon, which is the old paradigm, but as the willingness to finally look inward. To intentionally put down the spiky shield.
It says, courage opens the door into safety and belonging. This seems to be the exact moment where the rider and the elephant actually start to work together as a team.
Yes. Because courage isn't the magical absence of fear. It's the rider saying, I know you're scared, elephant. I can feel your heart pounding in my chest, but we are going to walk into this room anyway. I've got you. It's the definitive shift from unconscious reactivity to conscious proactivity.
From there, the meditation moves us to acceptance and reason. The Source calls this the doorway to true self-regulation. The mantra is, things are the way they are.
This is pure stoicism, and again, central to ACT. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It doesn't mean you necessarily like the situation. It doesn't mean you're a doormat who just takes abuse. It means you simply stop fighting the absolute reality of the present moment. If you're stuck in awful traffic, raging against the traffic doesn't clear the road. It just burns your internal energy. Acceptance is acknowledging, there is traffic, I'm going to be late, this is happening.
So it's about dropping the word should. There shouldn't be traffic today.
Exactly. Should is the absolute enemy of acceptance. Once you accept the reality, the elephant stops panicking about what should be, and it settles into what actually is. And that biological acceptance immediately calms the nervous system.
Then we get into the really high vibrations, love and joy. The Source links this to connection, unity, and a profound sense of returning to the physical body.
This corresponds to the state of safe and social and polyvagal theory, the ventral vagal state. This is where true cellular healing happens. This is where digestion operates optimally. This is where genuine connection and empathy happen. When the elephant feels completely, fundamentally safe, it doesn't need to fight and it doesn't need to hide. It can play.
And finally, the very last scan of the audio. Peace. The Source describes this as the feeling that nothing needs to change right now. And then it delivers this line, I am the rider and the elephant.
That line, I am the rider and the elephant. That is the ultimate synthesis of this entire framework. It's true wholeness. It's the profound realization that you aren't just a logical thinking mind trapped inside a clumsy meat suit. You are the ancient biology, the millions of years of survival instincts, the stored trauma, the spontaneous joy, the rational logic, and the vast awareness that holds all of it together. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It isn't sitting alone in a perfectly silent room. It's the internal capacity to hold all the noise of being human without being disturbed by it. It is the dojo itself.
It's an incredibly powerful journey. We've basically gone from road rage to enlightenment in about an hour. But I want to circle back to the practical application of this before we wrap up. The Source emphasizes heavily that this is a training protocol. You don't just listen to this audio once and instantly become a Zen master.
Right. Consistent repetition is the key. You are literally rewiring the physical structures of the brain. You are purposefully carving a brand new samskara. If you listen to this Dojo of Sound repeatedly, especially utilizing the theta entrainment to bypass the critical faculty, you are actively practicing the act of noticing. You are engaging in a neural rehearsal. So the next time that guy cuts you off in traffic, the old neural pathway, the dragon, will absolutely light up. But because you've trained, a new pathway will light up right alongside it. The noticing muscle. You'll have that tiny split second of choice. And in that split second lies all of your freedom.
So bringing it all together, the ultimate goal isn't to kill the dragon.
No, the dragon is your vitality.
And the goal isn't to drug the elephant or force it into submission.
No, the elephant is your deep wisdom and your evolutionary history.
The goal is to build a relationship, to become a rider who creates enough internal safety that the elephant simply doesn't need to charge anymore.
Precisely. We cannot force our biology. We can only ever guide it through safety and awareness. These difficult emotions we've talked about, the rage, the judgment, the paralyzing fear, they are not moral sins. They are highly successful survival strategies that literally kept your lineage alive for 1 billion years. They deserve our profound respect, not our contempt.
That is a beautiful thought to end on, and it completely changes how I'm going to look at my own frustration the next time I'm stuck in a slow line at the grocery store. So here's a final provocative thought to leave you with today as you go about your week. Early in the source material, it called human judgment, a fast processing intelligence trained in chaos. If you catch yourself harshly judging someone today, or maybe even judging yourself, what would actually happen if, instead of fighting it, you just thanked it?
Yeah.
What if you took a breath and asked your inner dragon, what treasure are you trying to protect right now? You might be very surprised by the answer.
It might just point you directly to what matters most.